Hey everyone, thanks for joining office hours tonight on our new time, Thursday evenings at 8 p.m. I will make sure that we're out of here and classes dismissed before 9 o'clock because I know that's typically when good TV comes on. Thanks for rolling with this rescheduling. Personally, I'm trying to reclaim my weekends, so trying to keep a evening session for us here, which I think is also probably a little easier for people to attend as well, because does anyone really want to be job searching on the weekends? I don't know. In any case, thanks a lot for joining. Today, we are going to talk about getting personal on your resume. So what prompted this topic for me is I was going through, I think it was the Get Hired topic on LinkedIn News or something around job searching on LinkedIn News. And this big topic was featured about hobbies hobbies and interests, and do these belong on your resume? And the general consensus for the posts that were featured in this content stream was, yes, hobbies should be on your resume, or that it's a great way to highlight the human side of yourself. And by and large, I've always been against putting hobbies and interests on your resume, or that type of personal stuff, because I don't feel it's the best use of resume real estate. But I'm always curious about what people in hiring really think of this. So us resume writers and career coaches, we can give you all the advice based on our own opinions that we want to, but we really need to be validating it with the people who are actually doing the hiring. Hi, Jude, thanks for joining. So we really need to more consistently validate it with the people who are hiring. So if you follow me on Twitter, you know that I hang out with a lot of recruiters there. And I turn to recruiters frequently for their take on how they would like to see resumes, what hiring managers want to see in terms of resumes. And I was really curious about this hobbies and interests thing. And so I took it to Twitter. I took it to #recruiter Twitter. And I asked them, really, hobbies and interests, should they be on a resume or not? Does this do anything for you? Does this change? Hi, Dolores, thanks for joining. Does it change your perspective of the person? Does it offer any unique insight? And I would say that while there wasn't a strong push to discourage the inclusion of hobbies, but there was a good split, 50-50 split, where it's like, I could do without them, don't really care, it doesn't make a difference, negative or positive. And then another 50% that said, actually, I really do like to see that type of information on your resume. So, but the thing with that where it was further validated by recruiters is that it kind of needs to have a so what behind it. Like, yeah, so you play in a baseball beer league with your buddies, every Wednesday night. So that's great. Well, maybe pre-COVID, let's say. So that's fun. But what does that really mean in the grand scheme of things in terms of your candidacy for your job, for a target job? Like, how does your hobby reinforce why you're a good fit? So that's what I want to dig into a bit today. We're going to take a look again at Michael's resume. We're going to take a look at his hobbies. I just want to lay out what really my thoughts are for including hobbies and interests if you really want to. By no means do I think you have to include hobbies and interests. I think it's a nice to have, and it is a last thing to have, and it would be added only if you had the space. But you should be always prioritizing your professional experience and your accomplishments and achievements professionally. So let's take a look at all sorts of personal things that we might be including on our resume, and talk about them each more in depth. And I really want to start with some contact information and talk more about that. So let me bring up Michael's resume. Hopefully StreamYard behaves for me today. All right, I think this is the right one. Nope, I want a different one. All right. Sorry, guys, I've got two of Michael's resumes open here. Anyway, it's fine. We'll just use what we've got here. Okay, so I've got the one that says personal interests at the top. All right, so let's take a look specifically at Michael's contact information here. So how personal is too personal when it comes to contact information? So we really don't need to actually include a ton of super detailed granular information about our contact, aside from giving enough information that a recruiter or a hiring manager can get in touch with us. They're not sending us snail mail. They're not going to send us a handwritten letter in the mail. They're not going to put something in the mailbox. So we don't need our full mailing address. So when we are including our contact information, we want to only include city or metro and state or province. So in Michael's case, we're just putting Scranton, Pennsylvania. That's it. We don't need to put his townhouse address. We don't need to include any of that information, just where he's the city and his state. If Michael was kind of in the outskirts of Scranton, kind of in the sticks somewhere in some obscure town name that barely anybody knows, he could still use Scranton if that's the closest metro or city center to him. And then just his phone number. Of course, we want to include a phone number that will actually answer, right? Or where we are going to answer any or return any voicemail within 24 hours. That's really important as well. Email, we got to make sure that works too. And then our link to our LinkedIn profile. Now, I just want to pop back over to email a bit. So this is disappointing, but it is the reality of how people perceive email addresses. There is a lot of judgment around the email service provider that you use. So if you have a Hotmail address, if you have AOL, if you have MSN, is that a thing anymore? If you have CompuCast, something like that. If you have any of those really old type of email address, if you're using an old email address provider, even Yahoo, people are placing judgment on your choice of email address. If you're using an old email address provider, like a Hotmail, let's say, people in hiring, unfortunately, question how tech savvy you are. This is really unfortunate, very disappointing, pretty stupid, if you ask me. I don't see the point in this. People just got to judge something, I guess. So if you want to err on the side of giving the impression that you are a tech savvy professional, when you're choosing a free email provider, I would recommend that you either go for Gmail or you go for Apple, I guess it's at me or at iCloud.com. Go for kind of the Android version of the email address or the Apple version of the email address. And that will show that you're kind of with the time, so to speak. Okay, so just don't allow people to make that kind of judgment about you. Just get onto a current email address provider or a well-known email address provider, and just don't let them go there, basically. And even if you just use it for job searching, that's fine. You don't need to make all of your emails go to a new Gmail address or new Apple address. Okay, so that's the contact information that I wanted to talk about, or the details on contact information that I wanted to talk about. And feel free to put your questions in the chat as they come up for you. I will definitely get to them. All right, so let's take a look at volunteering. So this is kind of the personal, more of the personal side of us as job search candidates. Okay, so the thing with volunteering, where things might get too personal and where we are exposing ourselves to judgment, unnecessary judgment, is in the volunteering that we might have, or the volunteering roles that we might show on our resume. So if, again, for unnecessary reasons, people will make judgments based on your volunteer work. So we want to avoid including any volunteer work that is affiliated with a religious organization or affiliated with a political stance. Doesn't matter what religion, doesn't matter if politically you're right or left and the company you're applying to is right or left, there will always be judgment around being involved in religious or political pursuits. And so I would just recommend that you save yourself from being judged in that respect and leave any volunteering that's specifically associated with religious organizations or political affiliations off your resume, okay? Other than that, most things, most other organizations, nonprofit organizations, charities that you might volunteer for, typically that's okay, but it's really the religious stuff and the political stuff that's gonna get judged, unfortunately. So we don't wanna we don't wanna be too personal with the volunteering that we're showcasing on our resumes. Okay, so let's talk about hobbies. So a lot of us might show hobbies on our resume like this: hobbies and interests. So that's, you know, it's okay. And then we might list our different hobbies as well. And I tried to grab the hobbies that I recall Michael having. He's a very well-rounded individual. You know, I know he was in improv. He also did songwriting or song parody writing, screenplay writing, Threat Level Midnight, filmmaking, also Threat Level Midnight, and hockey, although we didn't see a lot of that. But when he did slam Toby into the boards, he was pretty good on his skates. So in any case, you know, hobbies and interests is kind of like, from a subheader perspective, that's kind of like been there, done that, not very exciting. I would probably maybe make this more so personal interests as opposed to hobbies and interests. And then that also opens up what you might want to include in here. If it's not a hobby, but maybe a little fun fact about yourself, you can include that in a personal interest section. Just opens it up and moves it away from just hobbies and, you know, interests. Okay, so with our hobbies section or our personal interest section, we really need to, before we just provide information about the hobby, we really need to get to the heart of why an employer would care about this. So I really like to use the so what, why should they care type of test. So let's use the improv comedy as an example. So with Michael, so he's in improv comedy, that's fun, ha ha ha, he's a joker. But what, you know, he's headed towards a more of a sales manager type role. How could improv comedy help him you know, beef up his skills in sales? So my thoughts around improv comedy would be something along the lines of it being an improv and kind of flexing that muscle for thinking on your feet really fast. That could really help him as a negotiator, as I see it. You know, it really helps his ability to have quick responses. And it helps him kind of go with the flow and really meet his customers where they are. So that's really what I would talk about when I'm talking about his hobby in improv comedy, is that that he is an avid, let's say, student of improv comedy. And then I would expand upon that again to clarify or validate the so what, why would they care test. Avid student of improv comedy, which strengthens ability to negotiate effectively with clients, let's say. And I would just leave it at that. So it's like, here's my hobby. I'm an improv comedy. But hey, what that really means is I'm a really good negotiator. In Michael's case, I mean, he did also do a lot of public speaking. So this could also reinforce his skills in public speaking as well. In terms of filmmaking, this is the next one that I think is really appropriate in this case. He could talk about filmmaking in that he was able to really, like, when you think about his production of Threat Level Midnight, everybody in the office made an appearance in that film. And so really what he did is it exhibited his leadership ability in that he was able to rally all sorts of people to get involved in that project. So I would maybe say something to the effect of produced a feature film, Threat Level Midnight, and let's say demonstrating strong leadership skills and ability to influence team and secure buy-in and participation in the film, let's say. So really, again, we're talking about the hobby itself, and then we're reinforcing why a potential employer or a recruiter would care about that hobby. So that's really the approach that I would recommend for hobbies, is to identify what your hobby is, and then mention why it makes you better at or more equipped to step into your target role. Again, with the hobbies section, with a personal interest section, this is a nice to have. You don't need to have it by any means. And you want to prioritize the real estate on your resume. You want to make use of the resume real estate, preferably with including accomplishments from your actual work experience. You don't need to include this personal side. The personal side of you will come through in your writing of your resume as well. So it's not like you're going to seem like a complete robot just because you're not including your hobbies and interests. But you can include interests if you have the space. If you're aiming for a 2-page resume, you would need a good amount of space, but do not sacrifice professional accomplishments for personal interests. That's just not a good use of the space. Okay, so again, just in summary, really with your hobbies, if you're gonna showcase them, make sure that you're validating or reinforcing to the reader why they should care about that and how it makes you better at your profession. So that's really what I wanted to say about personal stuff, getting possibly too personal on our resumes. We don't want to have any TMI moments on our resumes, basically. Okay, so what questions do you guys have that I can answer for you about job searching? Anything goes. I'm here for you guys. Thank you very much, Dolores. I appreciate that. Yes, hobbies can sound like a teen thing, can't they? Yes, they can. Thank you so much for that feedback. Thank you, Jude. I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, so that's really what I wanted to mention. And I'm happy to take your questions. That's really all I had prepared tonight. So there was a question on Twitter about sorry, I lost my mouse. There was a question on Twitter about addressing short-term gigs, a series of short-term stints, because there was a tweet that achieved a considerable amount of visibility where it was fairly misguided non-advice, I'd say, about avoiding short-term roles. Short-term roles are not as big of a deal as some people may make them seem. And there's always strategies for addressing short-term gigs on your resume. And I'm going to make a totally separate video, not live, a recorded video about addressing those, because I think it's a very important topic and a topic that a lot of people are worrying about. And I don't want you guys worrying about it. You don't have any time machines. You can't go back in time to avoid those short-term gigs. So we got to deal with what we've got, right? Jude. I like to include personal interest when a person works as a program coordinator at a retirement home. Demonstrates the competence in being able to create activities for people. That's very interesting. So they're targeting program coordinator at a retirement home. So what personal interests or hobbies, let's say, would you include that would reinforce their ability to or strength in coordinating activities? What hobbies do you think would reinforce that? I'm curious what your thoughts are on that. So with the short stints, I'm going to make a separate video about that. And I really don't want people worrying about that because in a lot of cases, some of us may have short-term gigs, but in actuality, we didn't leave short-term gigs because we just up and quit, but we were actually approached by other employers because we were in high demand. And so we got to make sure that we're not giving the impression on our resumes that we just left with that we are poor career planners. Far from it in most of our cases. And also sometimes it's a condition of the market. Like look at so many of the people affected by COVID-19, and so many people are unfortunately out of work, and that's due to no fault of their own. So we need to also make sure that we're addressing that properly on our resumes. Jude, okay. Crafting, reading, could start a book club. Oh, I love that. Yeah, that's great. But of course, to that point, we would want to make sure that we are clearly articulating that for the readers. So clearly articulating that that they're an avid reader, let's say, with an interest in, let's say, coordinating book clubs, or they are a film aficionado and they look forward to, let's say, organizing film clubs. So we want to make sure it's clear for the reader, never just assuming it's implied. So those are great ideas. I love that. Change of subject. Yes, Dolores. I need to redo my profile. Do I address that I'm unemployed in case a recruiter looks at it? So with regard to that, with regard to unemployed on LinkedIn, I would recommend that you turn on the alerts to notify recruiters that you are open to work, but I would not turn on the green banner. I'm not a huge fan of the green banner. And also it's my understanding that for recruiters, it's not searchable. But if you turn on the alert to recruiters that you are open to work, or I'm sorry, that you are available to work, just the tag for recruiters, not the green banner, then they can search that. They can search the one that's viewable specifically to recruiters. So I would recommend that you turn that on. I would not recommend that you indicate anywhere else on your profile that you are unemployed, aside from if you were laid off due to COVID or laid off due to something from your most recent role. You can say at the bottom of the description of that role that you departed due to, let's say, that you departed due to a reorganization or an organizational restructuring due to COVID-19, let's say. But I wouldn't advertise that you are unemployed by any means. That's not the brand that I want you to go towards. You're very employable. And so we want to make sure that we are really leaning on what makes you employable. And those are your strengths, your skills, the track record, your proven track record of creating results, and rather than just being purely available because you're unemployed. That's not a really good, that's not super marketable. Okay, so to recap, turn on the flag to recruiters only that you're available. Do not turn on the green banner. Okay, all right, hope that helps. Yes, Jude, yeah, scrapbooking and photography, those would be good hobbies as well, or interests as well, for someone who is an activities coordinator, for sure, for sure. That's great. All right. So any other questions that I can answer for you guys? So we'll do this again next Thursday. Thank you, Dolores. My pleasure. Jude, I think you're asking about are you asking about LinkedIn? I think you're asking about LinkedIn. I think you're meaning, would you keep your employment to present on LinkedIn? Like let's say you were laid off from your most recent role. Got it. Okay. So no, I would not do that. The reason for that is because that's false. We want to be very transparent and honest with our dates. I did ask Recruiter Twitter what that actually does for them in terms of, because I think what we're all worried about when it comes to the dates is something called all-star status on our LinkedIn profile. So all-star status indicates that you have basically a complete profile. One of the criteria, one of the requirements for having a complete profile is having a job that is current. So sometimes if you don't have a job that's current, that will pop you out of all-star status and into intermediate status, which could impact searchability. However, I tested this on my own profile and I basically quit all my jobs. So I had no employment. I even pushed it back a year to make it look like I was unemployed for a year. And I did not take myself out of all-star status. So what you want to make sure you do is make sure that your profile is totally complete before you end the job on LinkedIn and put an end date. So make sure your profile is totally complete and then go ahead and put the end date on the most recent role. If it does pop you out of all-star status into intermediate status, there was not a strong indication to me from recruiters, the recruiters I surveyed, that matters at all to them. They are searching, generally speaking, by keywords. And so you want to make sure that your profile is keyword rich, and that will increase your chances of being found. The all-star status, there were many recruiters who said it's useless to them. So don't worry about that all-star status. Okay, let's see, Dolores. I used to use year only, not month. Obviously, it's out of fashion now. Are you meaning the date ranges on your jobs? So the date ranges on your jobs, you do want to use months plus year where it's applicable. Well, it is always applicable. You do want to include month and year for your date ranges for your jobs. The reason for this is when we just use year, that can be a bit of a red flag. It does leave the reader wondering if you're trying to hide a career gap. So we just really want to err on the side of caution and use month plus year in our date ranges. Dolores, I don't have a photo. I understand that makes the profile incomplete. Yes, it would. Is there a reason that you don't include a photo? Maybe we can talk about that and I can put your mind at ease. I do recommend including profile photo always. It does play into something called the know, like, trust factor. And it does have a qualitative impact on how one is perceived when they're having their profile viewed. When we don't include profile photos, it leaves the profile visitor wondering, like, is this hiding something, and what's being held back here? So I think what I would do to strike a happy medium is to restrict your profile photo from being viewed publicly, and you could allow it to be viewed by connections. But unless there's something personal that's confidential, that you'd rather not talk about here, I would recommend having a profile photo visible to all. Basically, if you are worried about, okay, you hate having them taken. Okay. So I understand that. There's some so it depends on how much you want to invest. I think a headshot is a worthy investment. And I do recommend investing in one if you don't love having your photo taken, if that makes any sense at all. So the great thing about great photographers, is that they can really help you feel at ease and really catch that moment, and you won't even know that you're really having your photo taken, so to speak. So there's some really great photographers out there that they're just true artists, and they just really care about their clients. And it's not about you sitting in front of a blank canvas and then they take like a security ID or security badge photo. It's not like that. That you could be outside, especially with COVID, you probably would need to be. You could be outside. You could be, in the element. It could be a candid shot. There's all sorts of options when working with a photographer. So if you're not loving having your photo taken, that is what I would recommend. If you're like, forget it, I'm just going to do it, I'm just going to rip the Band-Aid off and have my photo taken, anyone can do it. Someone in your family, a friend, literally anyone. If you don't want to make the investment, or you just want to just get it done, just get anyone to take it, and then use that. And to make it easier on yourself, if you're going to have someone in your family take the photo, just have a neutral background behind you, like I have behind me. It's just a white wall. Wear your usual professional attire, so nothing overly professional, because that will feel uncomfortable. Stand against the plain background and just look directly at the camera and smile. And on iPhones, you can, I don't know how Androids work, but on iPhones, you can rapidly take a bunch of photos and just pick the best one. So you can be done in a couple of minutes. But I would really recommend that you do put a profile photo up. Okay. All right. Great. So any other questions that I can answer for anyone? Well, thank you everyone so much for joining me tonight. No problem, Dolores. Thanks everyone for joining me tonight. If you have any questions in the meantime, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Feel free to comment on any of the videos. And if I can't quickly answer your question in a comment response, then I will definitely address it in an upcoming video. Okay, thank you everyone. Have a great evening. All the best to you. Take care.